All right, so everyone's here. Good morning, hello. Well, I guess it's afternoon now. It's 1 o'clock. And I'll just do a quick little intro. My name is Jenny Hinchcliffe. I'm the Exhibitions and Events Manager here at the San Francisco Center for the Book. I'm really excited today to be here alongside Eric, Melissa, and Thea. And I'm thrilled that they have all agreed to do this classic print artist Q&A with us. Eric and Melissa are going to share their expertise and knowledge of working big and what that's like to be a classic print Roadworks artist. And this conversation will be moderated by Thea Sizemore of Kavamore Press. So I'll hand it over to Thea, Melissa, and Eric. What I will say to the audience who is here right now, if when one of the speakers is talking and you want to see them large on your screen, just click their window twice, okay? So that is the way that you maximize a speaker on the screen, FYI. So it looks like Eric's kind of blipped out, but we're gonna go ahead and we'll get started. So I'll hand it over to Thea. Take it away.
Thanks everybody for joining us at Roadworks 2020. This is the most unusual year yet. You know, we didn't foresee this happening, but I think it's really cool that we've been able to, you know, pull together such an amazing group of artists and pull together an event to help support the San Francisco Center for the Book, which hopefully if you're here, you know a little bit about the center. But this event is usually one of our largest events of the year. So we definitely felt like we needed a way to keep it kind of going. So thank you all for participating, artists and attendees. And it's a great honor to be here with Eric and Melissa to talk with them about their work. We will be recording this session, so that's just something for everybody to kind of keep in mind. You know, so hopefully we'll all be really thoughtful and mindful of that as we're moving through this Q&A session. I want to kind of keep it kind of casual because, you know, this is a cool opportunity for us all to be like kind of in the room together. So we'll, you know, if you have questions, you know, that come up, please, you know, share. We have a comments section, the chat area. That's a great place. If you have, you know, questions that you want me to ask the panelists, you can put them there. We'll also be sharing links and such there too as we go. So keep your eye there also. So without much more sort of business chatter, we can kind of move into like some more conversation bits here with our classic print artists. So welcome. Maybe we can start with just doing a little quick, you know, couple minute elevator spiel about yourselves. Melissa, would you like to start in sharing a little bit about, you know, just sort of a couple lines about yourself and your practice?
Sure. Hi, my name is Melissa West. I live in Watsonville, California, which if you don't know is just south of Santa Cruz. I used to live in Oakland and I've been a vendor at Roadworks for over 10 years and I've always just really enjoyed the event. It's just sort of like everybody, you know, everybody is excited and interested in printmaking and book arts and it's always a lot of fun. I've been a printmaker for about 15 years. I trained originally as a painter, but after walking the Camino de Santiago in Spain, I felt like I needed imagery and a technique that was sort of antique and stark and black and white. So I said, oh, I'll try prints. And I just dove in and carved 20 blocks like a crazy person, boom, 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 and discovered that for me, carving is easy, but printing is the big challenge. But nonetheless, I totally fell in love with the process and I haven't looked back. I've been just concentrating on print since.
Excellent. Well, that gives us a good sense. And thank you so much for, you know, all of your attending of our Roadworks festivals. It's really appreciated. And I hope, you know, we'll be back together next year. in person anyway. All right, well, Eric, do you want to give us a little overview of you and your practice?
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Eric Rewitzer, and I have been working with Roadworks. I think I did my first large plate about 9 years ago. It was a big Godzilla print, and I was really excited to be asked to carve something so big. I've come back more than a few years afterwards, and this is my first Roadworks I've missed as well, and I really missed the community of people there in front of the building. It's always a very, very special day. So thank you for all of your efforts at the center for creating something that we can all still participate in. I know it's greatly appreciated by the artist and printmaking community. I think we all miss each other a lot. My art practice has been rooted in printmaking since my wife and I started Three Fish Studios in San Francisco 15 years ago. Like Melissa, we have also relocated from the city. That's recently. We moved out to the Sierra foothills out in Amador County, and we are now just enjoying a quieter pace of life and a little bit more into nature. And that's certainly going to be influencing my work going forward. In fact, this year's print that I did, instead of a monster destroying the skyline of San Francisco, I did a bristlecone pine against the Milky Way. So maybe I'm softening a little bit, but definitely very much informed by my natural surroundings, and just am eager to see how that print turned out. I carved it. I haven't seen it actually up close, so I'm eager to see how it turned out.
Yeah, that is an interesting aspect of this, to be like, your work is being produced somewhere and you're like remotely watching. I mean, that's kind of a new...
I mean, it's better than nothing, but I really want to see that print. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing them too. I haven't seen them yet either myself. Both of you create work that is, you know, sort of tells a story in a single image. You know, so how do you both want to maybe talk a little bit about how you come up with the idea and then how you translate so much of the story into a single image?
Well, for me, I'll usually start with just the sort of the central character, if you will, or the central, just like for example, the print I did for Roadworks when I did the large print was a worker in the strawberry fields. And so I just had this image that I had seen driving through Watsonville of, you know, this person running with this case of strawberries, just in this effort to maximize how many cases he could pick in the day. So I just had this image of this person running with the case of strawberries. And then what I like about printmaking, especially working so large, is that you have all this time to build in details around them. So as I'm drawing it on the block and transferring the image and having to fill in all this space, I sort of build in the story around that one central character image. And that holds true for my smaller blocks too. It's just this one sort of lightning image that shows up in my mind, and then I fill in the rest of the story as I work.
That's great. I remember that print. It was so beautiful, and it was quite popular. I remember everybody was like, ooh. That was a great one. I loved it. Eric, do you want to talk about your process there a little bit?
Sure.
With the
my process almost always begins with an experience in a place, and then I go back and I revisit that place with the camera, and I spend a lot of time trying to find the right angle or the position that's going to express my interest in the place. And a lot of my work is based on the natural world or urban.
Eric might have frozen a little there.
Uh-oh. Looks like we have an Eric freeze. This is
It happens to the best of us.
it's the beauty of, you know, sort of the technology happening in real time. So
Yeah, exactly.
he may have to leave and come back. That sometimes is the way to get around the freeze. So.
So Melissa, it was interesting. Eric was talking about, you know, that sometimes he takes photos and uses those as reference. Do you like to work from photos, or do you like to start with drawings? Oh, Eric.
Here's Eric again. Just to quickly answer that question, yes, I often work with photos, and yes, take lots of pictures or find reference photos on the internet, and yeah, so just to have the reality to bounce off of. But then I usually, yeah, but yes, I definitely photos. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Eric, sorry, we lost you there for a moment.
So my Wi-Fi.
You were talking about sometimes you'll get photo references and, you know, begin building from there.
That's right. And just kind of start building up my composition from those photo references. One of the things I love about printmaking, and relief printmaking in particular, is the fact that it's so analog, it's so black or it's white, and how that informs your creative choices. It just creates such a unique aesthetic that I've always been drawn to, is those strong graphic forms. And when I made the connection that carve the same way that I draw, I was absolutely hooked. And
yeah, there's something I love about, you know, when the image like turns, it just sort of, that was the thing that got me into printmaking.
Yeah, and I'm very mindful about how I make my marks, because I think that those marks just create such a dynamic and such a movement across the piece, especially when you're carving out one for Roadworks, like 3 feet by 3 feet. Just, I love that whole dialogue of those ongoing creative choices you have to make as you're composing the piece with these simple little tools. It's a meditation for me.
Yeah, I find that one of the most challenging things about doing lino cuts or wood cuts well is actually the negative space. Do you guys have any tips for our fellow printmakers out there about, you know, what you do to make your prints look so lovely?
Well, one thing I've been teaching lino classes locally lately, and one thing I always emphasize to the students is, you know, let the viewer do some of the work. You don't have to carve everything. You don't have to outline everything. Then the tendency for people who are beginning, they just want to cut around it. And then it's like, you know, let your blacks blend together, and you don't have to define everything. Let meet the viewer halfway and let them solve part of the puzzle. I mean, printmaking to me is very puzzle-like. You have to figure out, you know, everything is backwards and in reverse, and the whole black and white, and you know, sort of no gray zones. So that sort of, so I'm working on a puzzle as I carve, and I also want the viewer to also be able to take part in that sort of puzzle solving problem when they look at the work.
I agree with that completely. When I think there's a long tradition of teaching in the printmaking community, and we learned so much. We learned how to describe how we do our work by teaching others and having them reciprocate by teaching us some approaches that we may not have ever considered. But for my practice, you know, when you flop the image and you commit it to the plate, I no longer think of the image in a weird way. I am now just focused on the process of removal, if you will. So it's like I stopped thinking of the shapes, but more about the spaces between the shapes and how I'm going to define those with my carving technique. And I get very lost in that. I really don't know what the print is going to look like until I see the first proof of it. And then I go, oh, that's what I was doing. And it's always a reveal and a surprise for me as well, especially in these large blocks when you spend hours and hours and hours. Like I say, I'm very, very eager to see this print. I think I covered probably $4,000 or $5,000. Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, I'm always just blown away with the amount of detail on those big prints that you are able to achieve. Do you have particular tools you both like to use?
I like the file Swiss carving tools. They're just beautiful, sharp. And in between those, I go from those to my Speedball, $10 cutter. So it's like the two ends, and I love them both.
I switch back and forth between these little power grip tools, which are, you get them at Japanese woodworker. But then these guys are the ones with the, you can take it off and then you can sharpen the little, this is removable and it's sharpened. You get these at McLean's. I use these for woodcuts, and I like these a lot more because you can actually sharpen them and
do you sharpen them yourself, Eric?
I try. I do my best. I have a little, slip stones, a little honing block over here, and especially when I'm carving into wood, I have to keep it sharp. So I'm still looking for the perfect set sharpening stones. I had them, but I lost them in the move. And gosh, I can't find them yet, but I'm looking. I'm looking.
Yeah, moving's tough, especially with like all of your art supplies. It's a lot.
Presses.
Oh man. Yeah, well, you still have some in San Francisco. You're trying to get back home, right? Now to your new home?
We have a 48-inch etching press in the studio that we had in San Francisco still. We're going to be moving that up here on the 15th of October. And that press has been used by many a Roadworks artist over the years because there's not too many presses that can pull a 36-inch plate. And I specifically got that press because of Roadworks inspiring me to work large. So I'm really looking forward to having that here and just seeing what kind of work comes out of it. And also with the creative community in San Francisco that might come out and visit and use it. And, the new creative community that we're building out here in the Sierra Nevada.
Yeah, so I think that's an interesting point you make about how Roadworks has influenced you. Could you talk a little bit more about that? I'm curious.
Well, for me, Roadworks is an extension of the community that I discovered at the Center for the Book. When I jumped back into printmaking about 15 years ago, I took classes at the center to learn traditional book arts with Mary Laird, but I took a fundamentally life-changing class with Rick Olson, and I know he's on here, so thanks.
Yeah,
Rick taught a class in multicolor linoleum block printing, and it really exposed me to a whole different approach to making work, and really made me commit to the whole process of printmaking. And it was a few years later when you guys asked me to carve my first block, which again was just a huge honor. Since then, the community that has been built around printmaking in the Bay Area has been fundamental to forming my whole artistic practice. And I definitely credit the center for planting the seeds for that community all those years ago. Yeah.
Yes.
That's the truth. And I think my mom's online too, so hi, Mom.
That's awesome. How about you, Melissa? Do you want to talk a little bit about how Roadworks has influenced you? And
Yeah, I haven't actually taken any classes at the San Francisco Center for the Book, but as I mentioned earlier, I've visited Roadworks or been a vendor for a long time, and I just love the excitement that builds when you know the steamroller blows its whistle and everybody goes running to see the new print being made, and that sort of participatory aspect of printmaking is very, very, very cool. And I've sort of tried to recreate that a little bit down here. I'm part of a sort of a activist artist group in the Santa Cruz County area called ARRT, Artists Resist and Respond Together. And we had something called the Resist Fest a few years ago, and they asked if I would like to do printmaking in public. And I was like, well, yes, and how could I make it sort of an homage to Roadworks? So I got a lawn roller, which is a huge hollow plastic drum on a handle. And it's empty, but you fill it with water, and that makes it get up to about 300 pounds. And I figured, and it was true, that is heavy enough to be able to use as a sort of do-it-yourself steamroller. So I corralled a bunch of artists to carve blocks, and we did the carving and the inking, so it'd be ready on hand. And then we asked people to choose which block they'd like, and we'd ink it, but then they'd get to push the lawn roller and make their own prints and then use them as signs for various, you know, window signs or demonstrations or whatever. And it was really fun. We had this long line of people waiting to use the lawn roller to make their prints. And it just, you know, and then people came and brought T-shirts, and just, it was incredibly exciting, and people were really into it. So I was very pleased to be able to sort of extend that sort of excitement and joy of printmaking to people who might not have otherwise been exposed to any form of printmaking, let alone public participatory printmaking. So that was a direct sort of spin-off from Roadworks that it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's cool.
yeah, that's cool. I like
the
figuring out the DIY
Mm-hmm.
aspect. I feel like right now that's particularly important because a lot of people don't have access to things. Maybe you have some ideas that you could share with those that are sort of tuning in about different ideas or things you've tried to do printmaking when you don't have a giant steamroller or a printing press or all these things at your fingertips.
Well, I think people are fascinated with the tool. You know, if you have a press and if you have a place where people can view the press and experience the press, it's a conversation starter. And I think people are naturally curious about how all of this works. And in my studio practice in San Francisco, that was a huge part of my lives, and the way that we just conducted our studio is you walked in the room and the press was sitting right there, and what the heck does that thing do? And we would, especially with kids, you know, you would have them ink up a block and run it through and spin the wheel, and they would see the whole connection to the materials and the inks and have something to walk away with. And I think that presses build community is kind of naturally, and out of the curiosity of the equipment, but also I really haven't met too many printmakers that don't like people. I think that we're kind of a social group, and especially for things like Roadworks, where you need a crew of people to handle a print that large, and it's really great to see the choreography that goes on at the center during these events. But I know for me in my practice, I have a small press. I have a 12-inch etching press that's portable, and when we do events, we always bring it with us. And I bring a selection of plates and papers and little things and a little inking table. And if people want to experience that, it gives them actually a lot more understanding of the work that goes into what they're looking at on the walls or in the racks. So I just encourage people to seek out printmakers, because if they have a press, they generally share it.
It's true. Melissa, do you have any, you mentioned your lawn roller, which I have heard other, artists using those lawn rollers for even laminating paper. I mean, doing all sorts of things. Do you have any other things you like to use alternatively?
Nothing as creative as that. But a couple sort of bouncing off what Eric said. One of the things I like about the printmaking community, I always think of printmaking as the mad science of the art world, because we have this equipment and these tools, and if you're doing etchings, you have acid baths, and you get to play with chemicals, and you have presses, and among printmakers, we're always like, oh, how did you do that? How did you do that? So we're always about sharing technique, and that's one thing I very much miss about about sheltering in place, is that you don't get that immediate sharing. It's much more difficult online than in person, when you're like, wow, look at that, that's cool. But the other thing I always stress to people is that, yes, I have a press and I have fancy stuff. And this is all the equipment and the supplies have built up over 15 years of work. But, all you need is a spoon and a kitchen table to start. And it can be as complex as you want, or it can be as simple as you want. And I love that accessibility, that anybody can just, with a very, very small investment in ink and a block, you can start making prints. And I love that sort of democratic aspect of printmaking.
Yeah. So I see the questions come into our little feed here, and they're wondering if you could share a little bit about how you both first decided to get into this field of work, and any influences that you had.
Well, I was exposed to printmaking pretty young. I grew up in Western Michigan, and about 10 miles down the road was Conrad Machine. And they're the manufacturers of not just the Conrad presses, but French engraving tools and Charles Brand and all of that. So I was exposed to that equipment when I was pretty young and in high school. Did go off to school and studied primarily, and printmaking was something we did in art school, just work to our painting practice and developing, which was interesting to me, but that's kind of just the way I when I got out of school, I came out to the West Coast and, just started getting jobs to pay my bills. I mean, I had my art practice going on in the background, but it was by no means supporting me. And right around 40, I decided to go all in to develop my art practice. And it was really difficult to think about what to do. Especially in a town like San Francisco, artists in San Francisco, there still are, and I hope there always will be. But what I really wanted to do was to do something that made me, I guess, stand out. And let's face it, there's not a lot of people carving blocks for a living. And I love the process. I love the tactile engagement of it. I love the iterations, how they weren't precious. Like you could make mistakes, you could experiment. Again, the graphic quality of it, and how with printmaking you can continue to push yourself both creatively, technically, with size, with color, with everything. And it's just this kind of deep well where creative people can just lose themselves in, and also build a community. So, I mean, for those reasons, that's really my connection and my passion for printmaking. It's just built around all of those aspects.
Mm-hmm.
What about you, Melissa?
In retrospect, I can see a lot of different things that sort of led me to this place. Starting with when I was about 6, my father got me a little printing press in a suitcase, with little movable type and it could only do like a business card at a time, but that was, my first experience of running ink over something and printing. And it was kind of mostly him playing with it and me looking on, but that was the first like, oh, this is interesting. And, when I was growing up, I wanted to be a cartoonist. So that was the whole sort of beginning of my love affair with black and white and sort of a graphic kind of art. After college, I got a job in a place that sold printing supplies, like lithography, professional, commercial printing supplies. So I got to mess with their typesetting machines. And so it's just, this whole sort of, my whole sort of career was dropping in bit by bit on various aspects of graphic design, graphic arts, printmaking, printing. And then I mentioned earlier, I was a painter and majored in painting in college, and that was sort of my practice, but I suddenly needed this whole group of black and white images. I just decided I needed black and white and just dove into printmaking. And as Eric said, the process is just so mesmerizing, just that sort of tactile carving, the sort of meditative aspect of just sort of getting into the rhythm of carving is just so satisfying. And yes, and endless possibilities of, the block is the first step, but then you can endlessly play on the press itself with color and monotypes and monoprints and just, this constant experimentation is just delightful.
Yeah.
That's great. It looks like we have about 10 minutes left. And I see a couple more questions that have come in our little feed. But I want to take a moment to prompt Melissa and Eric to plop into the chat their website, and if you have like an Instagram handle or anything like that you can share with our participants, that would be helpful, just so they'll have a few minutes to kind of get that information. And then we can, we'll move into these other questions that have come in. Carl asks, he says, have either of you had trouble titling one of your pieces, and are you willing to share that story?
Hi, Carl. Personally, no. I don't have a problem titling them. I keep my titles pretty simple. I gotta pass on that one.
Yeah, I had one recently. I did a print. I have this sort of pair of prints of, and this sort of ties a little bit into Jenny's question about activist art. I started these blocks several years ago and finally just finished them. And they're a pair of, I call them the American Saints. And one is of Dorothy Day, who's a sort of socialist activist, founder of the Catholic Worker, of the newspaper that sold for a penny to working people. So very socialist activist woman. And the other print is of Junipero Serra, who was recently sainted, and people have questions about that. So I compared and contrasted these two people, and graphically they're sort of in opposite dialogues with the black and white of the print. And so Dorothy Day was easy, and it's just called American Saint, Dorothy Day. But the Junipero Serra is like, well, he's a saint, but I think that's problematic because, granted, in the day, it might have been socially acceptable to sort of obliterate other people's culture, but it's not so cool now. We realize that's not a good thing, or at least many people do. And so I didn't want to call him American Saint, Junipero Serra. So I just, but yeah, so I went in circles for a long time and didn't publish those pieces or put them on my website or Etsy or anything for a long time because I could not think of a name for the Junipero Serra block. And finally, I just called it "This Is No Saint," and that was it. But that's been my hardest one. That I just could not get a handle of how to title the print and have it tie in with the other one.
Yeah, I always struggle with titles. You can only have so many untitled, untitled number 1, untitled number 2.
Yes, and my wife would kill me if I called things untitled, because she gets mad. She goes, they have a title in their head somewhere. You can't call it untitled. So I am forbidden from calling any of my work untitled. So.
Well, we can always call Eric, because clearly he's, cracked the code there.
Marketing. Yeah.
Let's see. I've got a little list of questions here. I'm looking over, make sure we covered them all. So, there's a question here about, the Bay Area and California as part of the, has a rich tradition of printmaking. Like Tom Killen, Art Hazelwood, and Mary Marsh. Do you feel like the Bay Area printmaking history informs your own work?
I think it goes back to Crown Point Press as well, and the work that they've done over the decades. Just seeing some of my contemporary art heroes and going into Crown Point Press and looking at their stacks of seeing like Diebenkorn prints or Jim Dine prints, it kind of blows my mind. Achenbach collection over at the Legion of Honor is just an unbelievable resource for seeing like masterworks over hundreds of years. But I think that there's a really strong tradition of printmaking in the Bay Area, and certainly, Tom Killian is not only someone I admire, he's someone as a printmaker, I just admire him as a human being. He's just a fantastic person. Rick Olson has to be on that list. His dedication to the craft and his generosity and how to teach these amazing techniques that have been lost or are in the danger of being lost, like wood engraving. It's just, it's really important to acknowledge Rick and the work that he continues to do with the printmaking community. But yeah, I feel very, very much in tune with the whole dedication to printing as a profession and as a craft in the Bay Area. And I'm glad that there's still galleries out there that are showing the work of of printmakers. And I'll shout out Arc Studios and Gallery over in Soma. The curator there, Mike Yoakum, has had a long, long history of showcasing printmakers. 111 Minna Gallery has a long history of showcasing printmakers. So it's kind of great if you are interested in printmaking or want to develop your practice. The Bay Area still seems to be a pretty great place to find those types of resources and opportunities.
Yeah, and I'd have to echo that, and not only all those wonderful places and people in the San Francisco area, but for example, down at this end of the sort of greater Bay Area, there's Monterey Peninsula College, which has a whole printmaking group, and Robin Smith, who's taught there for years, was the person who started the whole Print Day in May movement, where in May 1st, or the first Saturday in May, printmakers around the world now get online and share their work and participate in this global community of printmakers. So yeah, it's very exciting to have the history of people to look back on and to have contemporary people to share work and ideas with. It's we're very lucky.
We are. We're very fortunate.
Yeah, the Bay is still a pretty great area to the Bay and beyond, I should say. It's stretching further,
Yes.
So we're, pretty close to our time for our panel discussion. So it looks like I should remind everyone that Eric's print is going to be going up on the main stage for printing very soon. So you should check that out. And then at 2 o'clock, I'm going to be back with a whole new panel of people. And these will be 5 of our personal prints artists. I've got a list here. Erica Barajas, Dengul Kulas, Carl Roseler, Kate Rudder, and Laura Wellington will be here. I'm struggling with some of these names, so forgive me. But they're going to be here, and they're going to correct my pronunciation at 2. But I'm looking forward to talking with them about their art practices as well. So I would encourage everybody to come back here at 2. And then Melissa and Eric both have booths in the expo area. So be sure to check that out. Again, thank you very much, Eric and Melissa, for being here and contributing to Roadworks. And I would also encourage everybody to consider purchasing Roadworks prints, because they do go to support the San Francisco Center for the Book. And so as a reminder, we're a nonprofit organization. So we really depend on these types of support now more than ever, because everybody's struggling. So we appreciate now more than ever purchasing of prints from this event, and also the artists that have produced them. So thank you.
Well, thank you.
All right, we'll see you in your booths.
All right.
Thanks, everybody.
Look forward to seeing you in person someday soon.
I know.